what you're looking at is the interface of our system. It's a web-based system. There's nothing to install. It's what people in the school see, and it's broken out by solution. So we're going to be talking about ID Essentials today, but we do other stuff as well, other modules and components that we can sell to schools to solve other problems. The most important thing to start up is just to get a database of names and ways to reach people in order to do selfie-driven ID capture. So if I just go into the database, I see I've added myself already. Calvin, I'm going to pick on you just to do a manual, and then we'll import everybody to show how that works to do it in bulk. So I'm just going to do it the hard way, like this. I'll make you into a student and give you a student ID number. Do you mind sharing your phone number, Calvin?
510-390-3044.
Okay, so that's kind of it. There's no photo yet. We haven't imported anything. What I'm going to do is import everybody else on the call. We collected numbers ahead of time. So instead of doing it one by one, I'll show what it's like if you have the equivalent of a PSPA CD to import. So I say I want to import a file. This is just a CSV, first name, last name, grade, teacher, feels very familiar. This is kind of a MailChimp-like view of what we found in the file and the things that we're mapping to. And in this case, it just lined up neatly. This is saying what's going to happen and giving you a last chance to look at it. I'll pull it in, and we've now got the people in the call. So there we all are. So of course you would do this at scale. You've got a 2,000 kid high school, you would pull all the numbers in at the same time. Now the cute part about this is that I can hit a button and reach everybody, either their parents or the kids themselves based on the age of the kids, assuming that I've been given either an email address or a phone number for each individual. We have, I don't know if you caught it, but here in the details page, we've got contact information both for the kid and the guardian. So if we have either, then we can reach out with personalized information. And if we don't, then you can send out a generic email address, a generic URL, where everybody goes in and they have to type in their student number to find themselves. But in this case, I've got everybody's direct stuff.
Mike,
so what I'm going to do...
Mike, I just had a question as you're discussing it.
Yeah.
On that data, that phone number, that's the parent's phone number, right?
It got mapped to the guardian, yes.
Okay, yeah, because nobody has the student's phone number yet, but we may get that later on. So thank you.
Is that of interest to a school?
High school?
Yeah, most definitely at the secondary level. You know, at the secondary level, that's where you're most prone to have serious incidents where they want to have a lockdown or they want to evacuate. If we think about it, the catastrophic events that have occurred here in the United States, I don't know that they occur in other countries, but it has been all high schools that has had somebody come in and shooting up the place. So, you know, the ability for the school to hit a text message out on an emergency panic basis and hit their entire student population would be huge.
Okay, so we're about to do a broadcast, which means I'm going to select a bunch of people. I could do it manually like this, but what I want to do is say, hey, everybody who doesn't have a picture yet, now you see that everybody's selected. I want to reach out and give them a message saying, take a selfie. And I can do it by SMS or email. I'll do it by SMS. And I'll hit go. And now this is a cool part where people in this call, assuming I got their numbers right, their phones should be going boink, and there goes mine. So how should we do this? I guess I'll give you a chance. Please do, follow that link.
Aren't we supposed to silence our phones before meetings?
Calvin, why don't you describe what you're doing?
I'm looking at my phone right now. I haven't received my message yet.
I have. It's on the screen. I'm showing you guys.
Okay, let's do Corey.
Cool.
Go ahead, Corey. So tell me what it says.
I'm showing it, so let me read it. It says, from SPAC Elementary, let's photograph Corey Cooper for their student card.
Okay,
Ready?
so you notice it was personalized. It not only went to your phone, but of course it had your information associated with it.
It says ready, tap this link, and then it has a link right in here. So I'm going to tap the link, and oh, there it comes up. Back Elementary, and it shows me a correct way to take the picture.
If you scroll up.
Scroll up, avoid, it shows me what not to do.
Mm-hmm. And if you keep scrolling up, it says,
ready to begin.
Off you go.
And it's loading, wants to allow it to my camera. I'm lining myself up. And I clicked it. And there is my, let me put it here to the camera. There is my little SPAC Elementary ID card with the barcode and a QR code and everything.
Okay, and keep going. It says looks good.
And that's your digital, that's a digital card, correct?
That's just showing the ID, whether it's digital or it's going to be paper, it's a preview. And a couple of neat things have happened already. It happened in context, which means that she did the framing herself to make sure it was correct. If you say, hey, people, send me your selfies, and you're at a school with 2,000 kids, you're going to get 2,000 uncropped selfie images, and some poor sap is going to have to go through and crop it all. This way, people were framing it up correctly. Corey, what's happening now?
So it says, please ensure this information is up to date. And it has a spot for me to put in a guardian email, a guardian phone number. I'm trying to show it on the screen as well, as much as, and then student email, and then the phone number for the student, and then it gives permission.
Cool, and hit OK. And I hope everybody else is doing the same thing, that everybody's had their pictures work out.
Already seen some of these. Where do you go in now? Once you have to do that. So
and then it says, welcome, Corey Cooper. This is your private page at SPAC Elementary. Please choose a password.
Please do. Just choose something simple.
I will.
But what you're doing is you have, and everybody at the school, students, staff, even visitors, if we want, have a personalized landing page where we can show stuff just to them, just to teachers, just to students. And you need to password protect it, of course, because you'll use it in a moment to take attendance and do other things. There we go. Okay, so let's put that aside for the moment, and I'm just going to show some more stuff. How are we doing with everybody else? Did it work okay?
My picture, it should be in the database now, right?
Yeah, it should. Let's go back and have a look. If we go back and look at the data. Okay, I see Calvin didn't.
Oh, look at us.
Everybody else did. Look at Marty. So what are we going to do about that? Can you control 2,000 kids at a school? It's a fair question. You're going to get some vandalism, so you need some kind of tools to help out with that. So that's under ID, and here we've got an entire tool set called Review and Approve. So you see it's broken out by pages. We're on page 1 of 1, and if we had 2,000 kids, we would have 20 pages. And the idea is that it's pretty quick to say, this guy is rejected and everybody else is good, and then you would go to the next page, and it really is kind of this fast to go through those pages. And so it's not a heavy burden to do the review of the pictures of the school. What you're seeing here is that 1 person was rejected, 7 accepted, and if I hit send rejection notice, Marty's phone is going to ring, and he'll be told your photo was rejected, please take another one, so we'll let him do that in parallel. How are we doing so far? Any questions?
Yeah, when you rejected it, did it delete from the database?
No, it remembers that it was that way, but it isn't removed because we might want to send an SMS to mom someday saying, here's why your kid's picture was rejected. Or we might change our mind.
So it'll still remain tagged, but it will, the new image will populate.
Correct.
Okay.
That's actually a good segue to what about when you are allowed into the school and you do portraiture, which you're going to sell for the yearbook and to parents and everything else, putting those pictures in on top of this. You've got the students and their phone numbers and their grade and teacher and everything else. Now you've got a new set of pictures, which are the professionally shot portraits that you did later in the year when things were calmer. Yes, absolutely. You can import just those images, leaving the data untouched, and it'll replace the selfies. Something that the school would appreciate, because at the end of the year, they might want to do an awards ceremony and have the portraiture on hand. You are still incredibly valuable to the school, because yearbooks and award ceremonies and whatnot are school products. So the ability to overlay new images, professionally done images, is important.
Hey, Michael, I had a quick question for you. Can I download these images to an admin CV?
You bet. You go to the database and you say either export the database, which would, I won't do it because it's got everybody's cell numbers in it, but it'll dump off an Excel file, or you hit export images. I'll just do it to self and go. That's going to start something asynchronous. It'll grind for a bit and then send me a mail, and when it shows up later in this meeting, I'll show you what it looked like. Okay.
I have a question. How do you know that the picture that the student is submitting is their picture?
If absolutely nothing else, there's going to be a moment where physical ID cards get handed out. We haven't talked about printing and stuff, but a stack of 1,000 cards gets broken by grade, gets broken by teacher, and she has them, hands them out by last name, and she looks and says Timmy, and that's Timmy, and looks at Eddie, and that's not Eddie. There's still a human in the loop for that kind of thing.
What I liked the idea about it was, we're sending the text or the email to the parent. I think the odds are fairly good that the parent knows which kid they have. And, you know, so we're not sending it to the students that's going to screw around. So there is an adult in the room.
What do we do with kids who never take their picture, who never respond?
Well, let's just pretend that, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to, when we go into the ID Essentials, you'll see you have a photo kiosk. And what that does is it turns any computer, a laptop, a Mac, Windows, or a Chromebook, into a kiosk, which says, who are you? And I'll just type MIC, and it'll say that you've already had a picture taken, but if I'd already approved it. If I hadn't had an approved photo, it would have taken the picture of me here and now, and I would be able to fill it in. And that'll happen because kids don't have cell phones, or they don't receive the message because the number was wrong. So there will be reasons like that.
So this kiosk can be keyed up at any computer in the school, basically, for this purpose. Is that correct?
Absolutely right.
So that would mean, I'm just giving a scenario in my mind, that would mean a school could literally use their Chromebooks, and the kids walk up to the Chromebook, key in their name pops up, they take their picture. The images are available in this system, and we can produce the ID cards and et cetera right from here. Is that fair to say?
Exactly right.
And that's really important for those students who come as late enrollments. How many kids move throughout the school year, and someone has to input them in.
But it's also important because there's cultural changes that are taking place for all of our schools. And the reality is we can't put 20 photographers at a school to run efficiently on a school picture day for their ID cards, because, you know, they're not selling packages like that. It's for IDs. But they can have 20 Chromebooks to run their ID card system if they wanted to do this themselves on site. And then we off-site print the ID cards for them. So it just reduces our labor costs while satisfying a great need that they have. And I think that's a huge value that we haven't seen.
Yeah, there's two things I see is that, one, the student has an instant digital ID, so they do not need an instant physical ID. If you need to produce the physical ID, you could say, "Hell, I'll send it to the school," because you don't have a printer on site, you don't have staff on site right now. The other one is I originally thought the laptop and the Chromebook was the hot way to go, but then I thought about sharing devices on campus. Oh, well, someone touched that, we'll have to disinfect that thing. And I thought maybe some saran wrap over the keyboards would be one, but now I'm thinking, hey, student, what's your cell number? Boom, okay, kid takes a selfie. Boom, now you're in, you didn't touch anything. You know, you're really clean. So,
you're right, no touch.
And so on top of students though as well, this would be the perfect system for staff IDs for my high school staff, because first day of school, they all need IDs, but unfortunately in California with COVID, I can't get a room with 350 staff members in it.
Well, yeah, I think it's even more important than that because we're talking ID. But when you
Yeah.
talk logistics of that meeting or logistics of a school district, every teacher could be in their system with a photograph before they even set foot onto any site. And the district has control over those images because they can turn off the digital ID card, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, they can.
So that means when a person, so a substitute, they could actually have a substitute come in to a school, create an ID card for said substitute. That substitute has been identified in the system. They're time stamped in the system, etc., and they have a digital card. When that substitute's day is over or week is over or whatever the period is that is over, they hit the check box and their card is no longer valid. Digital card would no longer be valid. So that's a huge plus also.
Yeah, I would like to know how those are printed.
Okay. That's again an ID function. So you would say order or print ID. So we've got all of these cards, and let's just pretend that some of them don't have pictures yet, and some of them are staff and some are students. You might have reasons to say just do student cards, or I'm going to say any, and you could say people who do have photos because you probably don't want to render cards off for those who don't. So anyway, you set up a bunch of filters. I'm just going to say render all of them. Go to the output. This is some pretty fine-grained detail, but the people watching this video care about this kind of thing. Organization ID, we have a variety of types, but we want staff cards and staff badges and student cards. The form factor is very interesting. You can decide what sort of a device you're going to be targeting. So like a Pebble or a Nivolis is working on a CR80 set of dimensions. But for example, if it's going through an iGen 21 up, it's probably going to have full bleed, which the Pebbles don't. So this allows you to determine what you're targeting as an aspect ratio and an amount of bleed. And yes, we do the right thing with the designs. The sort order is important because I mentioned this part earlier. You bring 1,000 cards to a school, you've got to get them in student hands efficiently. And the best way to do that is probably have the first 400 cards by grade 9, and then the first 40 cards be Mrs. A and Mrs. B and Mr. C, and then they're done by last name. So just the printing order that they come off in. We handle that with the file names. You can choose whether you want to render it to PDF or PNG, and whether you want to zip it or not, and I'm just going to say go. And I got a warning about a student that I think myself, I didn't bother putting a student number in, so that was a warning. So what's happening here is that we're dumping these cards out.
And the cards are dumped out using last name as the file name?
Yep, we can see here that grade 10, Macaulay, there's Cooper, there's a series number or an index as well.
So just humor me. This would mean that once cards were rendered for a school, they actually have PDFs that they can have on file if somebody needed a replacement card, or is that a process that you guys have figured out yet? If they need a replacement card, they just take that file and send it back to the printer, wherever the printer is, be it the photographer or otherwise.
I have a point of view on that. If a studio wants to put a replacement printer in the office at the receptionist's feet, that's great, and then they're on the hook for ribbons and stock and everything else. I would think that it's cheaper to use a device like this, a $100 Dymo printer that prints cheap badges that look like this, right? For $1, they're just, sorry, for a penny-ish, they're incredibly inexpensive. So when a kid loses their card and you need a one-off replacement, my suggestion would be take the money from the kid, if that's the way the school handles it, print them out a paper badge, and simultaneously trigger the ordering of a hard card, which is being priced at replacement rates, but is printed and shipped to the school way later. Because the kid's got something.
So
Yeah,
immediately,
okay.
so the kid loses his ID, but he needs to go pay for lunch, right? He can come and get the paper one to use today, and then in a week, the hard card replacement comes.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a way to play it. As Calvin said, the PDFs are sitting right there if they want them, and they can print them too if they want.
Who's printing the cards?
Who asked? Sorry.
Who's
I
printing
think-
the cards?
Oh, it's actually quite flexible. It could be that we are doing it through relationships where we can get them printed quite inexpensively. It could be that we're partnering with a lab to get access to a bunch of studios and behind them schools, and the lab will insist on doing the print. If you've got the capacity in-house, then you can do it. Basically, we're not fussy.
And what's for the big labs to do? Essentially, I could tell the school 2 weeks before school starts, guys, just import everything, or is it on me as a photographer to say, hey, they're good to go now?
This part isn't quite finished getting built out yet, but when a lab gives it to a studio, there's a sort of a gasket that connects that school through that studio to the lab. And so if the school says, I want this, either a bulk order or a replacement order, it just goes funk wherever it's connected to. And if it shows up on the lab's print queue, that's a service that we're providing to the lab. They just see a list of jobs to print, they print them out, and then they settle up.
Perfect.